Hi guys, Tugger here with a new video, and this video is a PvP tier list video for Dragonflight, talking about who you should main, alt, maybe or nope, and we are going to talk about the classes because you are going to level those classes to level 70 and then probably main a spec like for example Frost Decay or Frost Mage, but you're going to level a class, right? And I want to shout out to Marcelian. They made a video about main and alts and actually gave me a bit of inspiration because they talked about PvE, mythic, raiding, design of those classes, etc. But I want to talk about PvP. I thought like, look, maybe I should make a PvP video about it because my crowd is mostly PvP and I want to make a video for them as well. It has also been a very long time before, since I actually made a tier list video about retail, and I'm looking forward to share you guys my insight about who I'm going to main, alt, maybe or nope. Of course, if it can give you ideas, that would be nice. All right, let's talk about DK. And I might say in PvP, you're going to be very happy because if you're a Frost DK main, the design, how they're actually building Frost Decay is actually super interesting because if you are actually going for a lot of crit on your stats, but also just with your talents, you have a lot of ways to reduce the Pillar of Frost CD, which makes it a bit more unpredictable to actually see if they're going to do damage or not, but also it will make that disarm is not the automatic response to a pillar of frost go, right? So whenever you're doing pillar of frost right now in Shadowlands, you're going to get stopped by disarm, and even now with level 60 talents, it will always still be that case because you don't really have the talent points to make the ideal builds to play around pillar of frost. So for that alone, I'm very happy to see. Also on Holy DKs, they have multiple builds that are going to be probably viable because DKs are just very good into casters, and since Evoker are the new class, I don't think they're going to make it dumpster tier either, so it will be a very good class to fight those like Tracteers, Evokers, whatever they are, and I think it will be a very good class to main. Now, am I going to main DK? Probably. I'm very happy with the class designs, class choices that they actually made for the talents. I think they will only make it better with PvP talents if they are going to make a mini patch to actually implement more PvP talents. But I feel like Frost DKs have a lot of choices and Unholy Decay as well, and those choices were never an option in Shadowlands or even BFA. So I feel like right now, if you want to play a DK, it is really the right time to get into the DKs to actually play a lot of builds and have variety with comps as well, because DKs, they can play in a lot of comps more than you would know, and the only reason why false DKs weren't really popular in Shadowlands it is because it was a dumpster spec, to be honest. Although I played it, I know that it was dumpster because every time I do a CD, there was always a response versus a melee. Like let's say a rogue or a warrior, they know they will just disarm you whenever you're going for this for your pillar goal. So for me, it is a main class. I'm going to main it. I don't know if I'm going to main it as first because I'm probably going to main multiple classes. But if I'm for sure going to level it first week, second week of Dragonflight to actually play it a lot of PvP with it. Now we have the first class, and I'm going to put in Nope. I'm not going to main Demon Hunter, although of course I made a video about should you main Demon Hunter, and my response was probably yes, for the amount of players that actually played Demon Hunter. But I don't really like the gameplay. I'm not really a fan of Demon Hunter. I'm not a fan of doing constant 1, 2, 3, 4 keybinds gameplay where you're just mashing to do a lot of damage. I know that I'm also main a lot of mashing like classes in Shadowlands and such, but it was never on the level of a Demon Hunter. I also just don't like the fantasy of a Demon Hunter. I would have liked a Shadow Hunter where you are more a hunter that has more about shadowy damage, like a Shadow Priest combined with a hunter, but they decided to put a Demon Hunter in, as a class, and I'm not really into that fantasy as well. I know that it's going to be very good in Dragonflight regardless because they have a great kit. A lot of people are actually crying for nerfs for Demon Hunter. I don't know if it's going to be justifiable or not, because again, Dragonflight is not out, so I cannot really pronounce myself on if it's going to be OP or not. But I know that with the kit that they have and the abilities that they gain from Dragonflight, I think it's still going to be a very good class in twos, in threes, and even in RBGs. And solo shuffle, they are really well served because they have a lot of CDs to save their teammates. Like for example, darkness is something very precious for your teammates if the teammates have actual eyes and not walk away from darkness. But you have also a very good defensive CD, like for example Blur, something that is very annoying to deal with if you're playing a warrior or if you're playing a feral druid or whatever physical damage abilities you have to actually deal with that demon hunter. For me, it's a nope, but I can understand why you would main a demon hunter. Now, druid. That's the real question, guys. Am I going to main druid? Because I'm very fond of the actual playstyle they have right now for ferals. I also really like restoration druid. I am not going to touch guardian druid. I don't care for RBGs or not. If I'm will do RBGs, I probably will play balance, resto, or feral. But I really like those three classes, those three specs that are actually very different from each other. Feral druid just plays so much differently from a balanced druid perspective or from a restoration druid perspective. So by itself, you have three classes in one class. So it's a high value class to actually main and play. I think the only thing I see that is going to be a bit difficult is it going to be very good in PvP or not? Because there is a lot of nerfs going on, although I know most nerfs are for PvE, so they might just counteract it with a PvP modifier, but I'm not sure. I think I'm really enjoying the fantasy of druids. I'm actually going to level a second druid just because I want to experience the leveling side of things. I'm going to make a video about it. And PvP wise, it gives you a lot of options, right? You can play restoration. So if you have difficulties to find teammates, you can play resto. You can play feral if you have like a double DPS comp, or you can even play with a healer and you have a great S tier comp regardless. You can play balanced druid in threes, although I think I will not play it in twos because I'm not really a fan of balanced druid in twos. But you have a lot of options, right? And even in solo shuffle, whenever you see like, look, the queues are a bit too long for me, I'm going to queue it as a restoration druid. There is a possibility to just queue as a restoration druid and you will do good because again, you can play feral affinity, you can play boomy affinity, you can even play a hardcore restoration shaman, restoration druids healing perspective where you're going for a lot of utility, a lot of survivability, and a lot of healing. So you have a lot of ways to play the game. I think druids are for me between the main and the alt. I think it will be the first alt I'm going to level to level 70 and to actually gear up, but I think I have other priorities in my eyes to actually play first, and of course to like PvP, get rating, get better at solo shuffle, get better intel on other classes because I do main those classes a bit more. And I think druids, they are in a state where everything can tip over into S tier or into D tier component. I think it's a risky class to actually main. And I think it's a bit like warlocks. They are very risky to main because they are just prone for nerfs. Today we saw a nerf of Dark Pact again, Death Pact, Dark Pact. I don't even remember anymore. Dark Pact, I think. Again, they nerfed it to the ground. Well, I think they forgot why they put it in the game because we don't have demon armor anymore. So I hope they just implement demon armor back into the game or passive or whatever there is to actually put some tankiness into warlocks because warlocks are tanky casters. And I can go for a rant, but anyways, let's now talk about the new class, which is Evoker. And Evoker, I didn't play it yet, so for me it's a maybe. If it's going to be very fun to play, I'm going to love the healing side of things, or even the blasting side of things, going for the DPS spec. I think I'm going to enjoy Evoker and then I'm going to probably alter main. But for now, I can't really pronounce myself because I did see the spells, I did see a lot of gameplay from it, I did see a lot of people talking about Evoker, how fun it is or how unsettling it is. Because again, not everyone is going to like that gameplay from Evoker. but I need to test it myself. So for me, it's a maybe. I'm not going to be hypocritical where I'm going to say I'm going to main it while I've never played it, right? So for me, it's a maybe. It could be a nope in the near future, but it could also be a alt or a epic main, and I'm looking forward to test that class. Now, Hunter is a great class because you have three DPS specs that are quite different from each other, because the Survivor Hunter doesn't really play the same as a Marksmanship Hunter, doesn't really play the same as a BM Hunter as well. And BM Hunter, you can play it multiple ways as well. You can play it more of a zoo spec design, or you can play more about barbed shot, or you can play more about kill command. You have a lot of ways to actually build BM Hunter. I think they are great mains to like it's a great main to actually like it's a great class to main. Excuse me, I can't even speak anymore. But I think it's a great class to main because again, hunters are notoriously king of 2v2. And if you play a lot of 2v2 and you like 2v2 and you know you want to climb not easily but fast, you can just main Hunter and it will be alright. You just need to find a healer like a priest or a druid, and you are like set. You have your traps, you have the fears from your priest, you have cyclone from your druid. You have a lot of ways to play it like however you want. The only problem I see for hunters is the age-old problem. You need a feral or you need like a retribution paladin to make your class work in threes. You have ways to play, like for example, KFC with a warrior. You can even play enhancement with an enhancement shaman, like a beast cleave type of thing. But the main thing is your S tier comp is a jungle cleave, and you want to play with a druid. And the problem is with that is there is not a lot of feral druids in general, and there is a lot of competition between those feral druids as well. So I think that's the main problem. I don't know if I'm going to actually want to have to compete with other hunters to find a good feral, because I don't have a lot of friends that are actually playing Druid. Um, so that's the main issue. I also know that in RPGs, hunters are not that great. At least for me, Marksmanship Hunter is a very good class, but I don't know how it's going to pan out in Dragonflight, because again, they could just nerf it flat out, or they could just buff it, and then it's just going to be fantastic. And it's a very risky class to main, because again, you don't have now Craven Stratagem. So you do flop over really fast whenever someone looks at you, and you just see it as also at a solo shuffle. Whenever you have to actually CC, you will have to take the diamond ice trap, I think how it's called, like the trap that is not going to break on damage to actually be performing, or you have to kite a lot because you cannot really stay too long into the fights, because else you will just pop turtle and then you're done, right? So you have a lot of ways to actually play the game, but I don't know if it's going to be very efficient. So for me, that's why Hunter, they are really going to be in the alt section. I really would like to main it, but it is very, very risky, right? And I'm wondering if I'm going to level it like super fast. So it depends if I'm like seeing like hunters are going to be insanely fun to play, because I'm going to test it out in Dragonflight as well at level 70. I don't know if I'm going to actually like prioritize PvP with it. I can understand why people would like want to play Hunter, because again, Survivor Hunter, they need a bit of love, like tuning wise, but I think the design is quite nice. MM, I think it's quite the same. It depends about numbers, because the gameplay is really the same as Shadowlands. So if you like Shadowlands Marksmanship Hunter, you will like it also in Dragonflight. I made also a video, should you main Hunter, so if you want to check it out to be more in depth, please check it out, and you'll see my like tips around those specs, and also if it's going to be fun for you or not. But personally, I really like hunters. I really like the specs. I really like the fantasy. Now it just depends on how risky it is to actually main it at first, because again, we want to perform in PvP. I'm not a meta chaser, but I'm not also going to look for a easy quick death. I want to be performing as well. So for me, it's a risk, but I'm going to alt it regardless. I'm going to play it, but I don't know if I'm going to main it. Now, Mage. Mage is... The problem is it is in a contention with other classes. I think if you're watching my channel from a long time, you know that I'm really loving mages. You know that I'm actually in love with that class. But it is in competition with another class that I'm maining all the time, which is Warlock. And if I'm maining Mage, I'm going to drop Warlock. And if I'm maining Warlock, I'm going to drop Mages. And it has nothing to do with the power of the Mages. It just has to do that I just want to have one pure primary caster in my lineup of mains. I cannot really main Mage while I'm actually maining Warlock. I feel like I'm like not really cheating on each other, but I would say it is more um, foolish from me to put a lot of energy in Warlock and then want to play Mage while they need the same kind of energy. Warlocks and Mages are notoriously hard classes to main. You could say everything you want about Warlock, you could say everything you want about Mages. It is like mechanically very hard to play because you are always the focus of the enemy team. You are always going to be the target somehow, some way. So for me, I would like to put it in Nob, but I really love Fire Mage. Like I discussed it like a long time in that video, which is should you main Mage in Dragonflight for PvP. And if you want to check it out, again, you can check it out. I do talk a lot of Fire Mage. I really love the builds where you are actually hard casting like a Destruction Warlock and do a lot of casting ability damage, I would say. So I really love that aspect, and that just tips a bit like towards the I want to main or alt Mage, but I know it's very risky. That's why I'm going to put it in maybe, because I think it's risky for me, at least for me, to main Mage. But again, if you need a caster, primary caster, and you don't like Warlock, I think Mage is your automatic great response. You need to main Mage if you want to main a primary caster, which is not Warlock, for example. And vice versa, if you don't want to main Mage and you need a primary caster, I think Warlocks are the notorious great answer to that question. And I'm going to talk right away with Warlock. Warlock is going to be one of my mains coming into Dragonflight. I think it's not like a secret. Like my whole channel is based around Elemental Shaman and Warlocks in general, because I do love that class, I do love that design, I do love the fantasy. Now, I'm going to give you a beware before you main Warlocks, because that class is notoriously hated to like for the whole community. I think the whole community, if they can delete a whole class, they would delete Warlocks, because they just don't want to face versus Warlock. If it's too tanky, it is not good. If it does too much damage, it is not good. If it's too fast, it is not good. If it has too much mobility, it is not good. Like literally, if they could just nerf it to the ground, they would just do that. And that's what's happening right now. Just with patch notes, they are like destroying Dark Pact, they're destroying the damage of Affliction, which is okay, it's a PvP modifier, so they can still change it. But they are destroying, if it's if it's is going to stay how it is right now, it is going to get destroyed and just unplayable, because basically all those changes were made in Shadowlands because it sucked. Because Affliction was the main target, couldn't really breathe, and just fell over whenever a warrior and demon hunter just watched, just looked at them. They just fell over and they're just dying. They just FF forfeits. So it is a risky class to main. So if you want to main Warlock, which I encourage, because I do love Warlock, and you would probably watch my videos if I'm making a Warlock video, so it's also a win-win for us both. But I know that if you're not liking Warlock, you just want to main because it's good, you're going to fall from super like high, because it is not going to stay in the state on how it was season 4. And even season 4, I think Warlock weren't really the meta. It was good because it was tanky and could survive a long time. It did a lot of pad damage. It was always top of the meters because Affliction are made to be top of the meter, because they are spreading damage towards 3 targets or even the whole RBG, for example. But it is not going to stay, because you will lose the stats from season 4, because again, season 1 the stats will be lower, because it's generally like that. Warlocks are generally good at the end of the season, like at the end of the expansion, and beginning of the expansion is very slow, except whenever it's busted, which is not right now because they are just over nerfing it, in my opinion. It is not going to be how you would imagine it in pre-patch as well, because you would lose Soul Rot and Soul Shape, and you will have to talents for Soul Rot if you want to have Soul Rot, but it will not have the conduit damage. It will have the legendary effect is there, but you need to talent it, so you will lose a talent for that. You don't have soul shape, so the mobility will be lower, although you can soul burn TP to get a speed boost and also an anti-root, anti-slow, which is good, but it is not enough to survive a lot of damage. So you need to understand that Warlock is a very risky class to main. And if you do understand that, then go for it, because Warlock is a super good class to main. It is fun to play, fun to level as well, fun to PvP, and fun to just perform with it, because it's really, really hard to play sometimes. You will not win at the first second of the match, while, for example, Warrior could look at you, destroy you, and match is over. While Affliction Warlocks, they will have to kite, they will have to dot everyone, they will have to survive, they will have to self-build themselves with fear, drain life, TPs, gates, everything they have to actually win in a 3-minute match, for example, or a 2-minute match, or a 5-minute match. And it can mentally drain you, but it is also satisfying to win those matches, because then you feel like, I got you, I got you. You're wrecked, man. You're wrecked. And that's the fun part about Warlocks. So please, if you want to main Warlock, I encourage you with all my heart. So let's talk about monks. Now, monks, they are, again, very good. They have great damage. I think they have a lot of one-shotty mechanics into the talents. At least whenever I'm talking about Windwalker, like Mistweaver Monk is probably the best healer at the moment on the beta, although it can change at any moment. I think the design makes it that you are first and foremost one of the most mobile healers. You have also one of the best healing throughput, and you have also great CDs. I think the only problem that a monk could have is to die into stuns. Again, it is still possible, but you now have the legendary to TP 2 times, and you have a PvP talent which makes you being able to TP whenever you're stunned. So you have a lot of ways to actually survive damage. I think they will still be good. So if you're maining monks, you're probably going to be in the meta, at least healing wise. And DPS, it will still be somewhat very setupy. You're going to set up the damage, you're going to set up for a stun and go for a one shot. And if it doesn't go for, like the way you want it to be, you just run away, try to win time, and go back whenever you got a stun, and go back with a storm, wind, storm, earth, and fire. The ability, and try to one-shot someone with your images. So for me, at least, I'm not going to main it. So it's pretty set in stone, and I'm not going to main monk, because it's a very high. How can I say? You will have to play it a lot, so it's high maintenance to actually be good at Windwalker. But also for Mistweaver, it's one of those healers where you will have little to less impact damage wise, and I'm a very, very DPS heavy like mindset. I like to participate with damage. That's why Disc Priest is such a fun class for me, because I do like to do a lot of damage and try to be able to kill someone. Well, for example, Mistweaver, I think they still have like a bit more damage, but again, if you're close to any target, you're going to get interrupted, silenced, stunned, blinded. You have no ways to actually heal without actually casting abilities. You have ways, but if you cast, they are not going to die, and that's why you want to be super far away. And while doing damage, you really need to be very close. Zen Pulse is also very fun. I did test it in RBGs. It could be something that is going to be very noticeable. You will do a lot of splash damage if you're going to do that on a warrior that is going into 6 targets. But in arenas, this is not going to happen. I think you're never going to play with Zen Pulse in 2v2, and in 3v3 it will be very niche. So for me, it will be a nope. I'm not going to main it, but I can, again, understand why people would main it. If you want to play like one class only, I think Monk is one of those classes where you could play it alone and have a lot of fun. But if you like play warrior, DK, I would say warlock, whatever, you will have to maintain a lot of skill into the monk, which is not transferable to other characters, because you don't have the same kinds of setups, you don't have the same kinds of damage, except if you're playing a subtlety rogue, for example. So for me, it is a nope, and I will probably, and I will not play Monk in Dragonflight, except maybe sometimes whenever I'm done with gearing the other characters and I want to test something like real quick. I would say I'm more likely to play Monk than Demon Hunter, so I'm going to put it in front. Retribution Paladin and Holy Paladin. I'm not going to talk about Protection Paladin because it's not really the type of gameplay I want to have. Um, I think it is very, very likely that I'm going to play a bit of Paladin because I have a special place in my heart for Paladins. It was one of those classes that I played it in Vanilla. I played it in Wrath of the Lich King. I do play it right now in Wrath of the Lich King. I leveled it in Warlocks of Draenor. It was my first PvP video, which is a montage video that I had to take it out because they strike it with copyrights about music. But I really like Paladins. I just don't really like how they're going for the direction about holy power and such. I would like to see it gone. I'm just not a fan of spenders and builders. I would like to have a lot less builders, a lot more spenders. So you have actually mana and you play around mana, and your throughput will be based on about mana instead of about holy power. That would be very good. That would be very fun. And getting would not be a drama like a problem, because again, you could regen it with judgments, you could regen it by other means, but it would be more fun than maintaining holy powers and playing with holy power. Well, that's my opinion, of course. I can understand why people would like it, but Retribution Paladin is I don't know if I'm gonna put it in alt. I think I'm going to put it in alt, but I think I'm more likely to put it in maybe, because again, it depends about how many characters I'm going to play. It is really one of those classes that I'm probably more likely to alt it. But I need to understand. You guys need to understand. I have a lot of time to actually play the games because again, I make YouTube videos, so I do have to make time for it. And Paladins are actually very fun to play just in general, although I don't really like the design and how they're going into Dragonflight, but I still always love Retribution Paladin. And I think Holy Paladin is still something that you could become good with it, although you don't really like it, for example. Um, but I want to have like 6 characters where I'm going to play it all the time, or at least I'm going to maintain it. And then I have like a few alts where I'm going to say, look, I'm going to bench priest, I'm going to play more resto druid, for example. Like something like this I want to actually implement in my playstyle. So for me it's going to be a maybe, because it depends if I'm going to bench it or not, if I'm going to use it or not. It really depends about the time I'm going to use into Dragonflight. And it can be that I'm really going to like Retribution and I'm going to play it more. But I feel like with the classes that I chose in main and alt, I feel like Paladin is somewhat dispensable. You could just say, look, I'm going to play other classes instead, and that's more the sentiment I have. You could have a lot of fun with Retribution Paladin. Again, they have a lot of like comps to actually be viable. You have more CC than previously, that's for sure. You have also a bit more mobility, in my opinion, although it's very limited. You still have more than Shadowlands, again, in my opinion. You have also a lot of ways to do damage. I think Judgment will be one of those abilities that are going to scale immensely in Dragonflight. And I think if you're going to main Paladin, you're going to have a great time. If you like Shadowlands Paladin, if you don't like Shadowlands Paladin, I think you will not touch Paladin in Dragonflight because it's quite the same, really. Priest, I think it is going to be my main healer. Although I'll also like Shadow Priest, I'm going to main Disc Priest because if I need a healer and my friends want me to play healer in trees or in RBGs or even in social play, I want to play really quick matches, I think Priest is one of those classes that I'm really comfortable with. I really like Disc Priest. I really like to do damage while healing and vice versa. While healing, I do damage as well. I really like that playstyle. I also like Shadow Priest because I like dot-based damage dealers. Although I'm going to say Shadow Priest resembles more like a big burst damage dealer, like for example a Destruction Warlock, because you have the way to play Dark Archangel, which basically gives you the possibility to do a lot of non-periodic amounts of damages to the enemy team, and you could actually play a more bursty way of like Priest. I would say. But you have choices at least, right? In Shadowlands, you didn't really have a lot of choices, at least for Shadow Priest and also for Disc Priest, really. But now in Dragonflight, you will have a lot more builds. You can play like a Disc Priest that is more about shadow damage or shadow healing, I would say. You can play a shadow Disc Priest that is more about holy. You can play a Shadow Priest which is more about dots, which is more about instant damage, for example. You have a lot of ways to main priest. So I would recommend you guys, if you like PvP like in general and you want to have fast games, main disc priest. You could also play holy priest if you like that kind of gameplay. I really tested holy priest, I just suck with it, so I will not play with it. I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but I know that I'm very bad with it, so I'm not going to touch it. I prefer to play with disc. And I would recommend to play disc priest if you like that damage dealing healer, that hybrid. I would say it's a hybrid healer. You have hybrid DPS, which is like, for example, enhancement shaman, and for me disc priest is like a hybrid healer. It does some good damage and it can heal very well, and I think it's a very good complement into my main section. And I would understand why you guys would main disc priest or priest in general, because it is a fantastic class to main in general. Now, rogue. I'm going to say that if I have to decide between subtlety or outlaw, I would probably put it in nope, because I don't really like those specs. There's like one spec I really like, and it is actually assassination, and that's why I'm going to put it in maybe, because again, it's hard to just level one class, which I only love one spec. I like to be efficient. I like to be able to play multiple specs with one character, because again, it gives me the flexibility to find comps, the flexibility to actually play the things that I like and to try it out and try builds and such. But if I'm going to main or alt a rogue, I'm going to play it assassination. There is no way I'm going to play subtlety. There is no way I'm going to be playing outlaw. I would probably play outlaw or subtlety for the lulls in BGs, for example, but I just don't like it. I prefer to play assassination because it was my playstyle, which was always the case whenever I'm playing rogue, even in vanilla, even in TBC, even in Wrath of the Lich King. I would be playing assassination. I wouldn't just not play subtlety. And that's my opinion about rogues. If you guys are maining rogues, I can understand it, because it's like a fantastic class to main. If you like subtlety, you would say to me like, whoa, you're not maining subtlety while you're maining assassination. What is wrong with you? But I just like the assassination feel. I like the combo point regeneration. I like the rotation in general. I like the ability to actually shut down a target and then go blind another target and just like destroy them with envenoms. I just like that gameplay. While Subtlety, I know it's a quite the same really to setup. You can just do whatever you were doing with Assassination, but probably better with Blind and Shadowy Duel, for example. But I prefer Assassination. That's why for me it's a maybe, because I can't really base my alts or mains on one spec. I prefer to be very efficient. That's why like those 5 classes, they are, I have the ability to play multiple specs, multiple builds. And I know that if I'm not liking, let's say, Shadow Priest, I still have Disc Priest. If I'm not liking Assassination for some reason, then I have leveled and played the Rogue for nothing, and that would be like a terrible setback, right? Shaman. So Shaman is a great class to main. Again, for multiple reasons. You have a healing spec and you have two specs which are DPSs, which are completely different from each other. You have an enhancement shaman, which is more melee, and now you can also just like spell cleave, I would say. You have lightning bolts, elemental blast. You have a lot of ways to do a lot of damage also from afar, and you have the elemental shaman ranged DPS, which is really a turret. You're going to blast people, you're going to do a lot of damage if you're left unnoticed. You have also great off healing, and in general it's a fantastic class to play. And that would be my second caster. I would say my support caster and my enhancement shaman, they will be both very happy into the roster. I think it's going to be very fun to play in Dragonflight. It's one of those classes that are very, 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 very interesting to play, just because of the class design and also just the class tree and the spec tree. You have a lot of options, a lot of builds to try, and a lot of builds to play. I think depending on comps, you can just change it on a whims and have a lot of fun. I think 2v2 builds are completely different from 3v3 builds. and so are actually Resto Shamans. I think Resto Shamans is as well a very good healer to play if you want a aggressive kind of playstyle. I'm very happy of that class, and I think you do yourself a disservice by not maining a Shaman, because it's actually not very hard to main. It's low maintenance. I think it's a lot of skills that are played for Shaman are transferable towards other classes. I would say if you're maining Destruction Warlock, 100% you can main Elemental Shaman, because it's quite the same. You also have multiple schools. You play around your bursts as well, and you're not rotting people down. But you can play also Enhancement Shaman, which is like one of those classes that can be applied with other classes. Like for example, if you're playing a warrior, you can definitely play Enhancement Shaman, or if you're playing a Retribution Paladin, then it is quite the same. You will have macros to actually off heal people, and Hex is such a great ability to use whenever you have the time to cast that spell. And now my fifth main. Again, I wanted to have six mains, and you have my sixth one in those alts. So I don't know if it's going to be Druid or Hunter, or even Evoker. Really, I don't even know. But those five specs are going to be five classes are going to be my mains coming into Dragonflight. You will see videos about it. But warriors are actually very interesting to play. You have arms, which have a lot of builds. I know that solo shuffle is pretty rough for arms warriors these days, but also for fury warriors, because again, your healer, they have to follow, or you have to follow the healer. Again, it is not the easiest thing to do, because if you want to do damage, you will overextend regardless. But I think it's a very fun class. You will always have somewhat the meta with you at your side. You have a lot of classes that you can play with. I think Warriors is one of those classes that can play with any class, maybe not with rogues, and I still think you can make it work with a rogue. You can play with a monk, you can play with a demon hunter, you can play with a shaman, you can play with a warlock, you can play with a DK, you can play with a shadow priest, you can play with a hunter, you can play with a druid, you can do with a kitty cleave, you can play with a boomkin, you can play, I think you can even play with an evoker, since they are very low ranged. So you have a lot of ways to play the game and enjoy the game. And I think warrior is just one of those classes that if you love melees and you want a primary DPS, warriors should be top of the list if you are going to choose a class. So this is my list. Those are my mains. So I'm going to main warlock, I'm going to main shaman, I'm going to play warrior, I'm going to main DK, and I'm going to main probably disc priest, maybe a bit of shadow priest. And then I have my alts, which are druids and hunters, which could be very depending on the meta, on the way I'm going to play the game, and on my friends if they are playing specific comps and they need a druid or they need a hunter. I might as well just use that to actually like go up and level and PvP with them with that set spec or class. So again, it is just an indicative on which I'm going to main, but I can understand that you guys maybe have another list, so please let me know in the comment section below which ones you're going to main coming into Dragonflight. It has been a very long video, but I wanted to talk more in depth about the choices I'm making, and maybe make you think about the classes you're going to main into Dragonflight PvP. Again, thank you, shout outs to Marcelian Online for the video that they've put out for PvE. I'm going to link that video into the description so you guys can actually see the video for yourself. And I love these guys. I wish they did more PvP content, but they just don't. But that's why I'm here to actually talk about PvP. While they are fantastic resources for PvE and other sides of the game. Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. And be sure to stay safe. We will catch each other very soon with a next video. Have a great day. Bye.